Hello, this is Mr. Ho, and this is a review for your test on chemistry as it applies to anatomy and physiology. For your exam, you will have 50 questions on the test, and you will be responsible for the following materials. Remember what chemistry is. Chemistry is the study of the physical matters of matter, mass, and fluids. It is basically a constituent of how things react in terms of chemical reactions, different relationships between solids, gases, and fluids. Also, keep in mind that there is a difference between atoms and cells. The difference meaning atoms are the smallest subatomic particles that have no life. However, cells are all made up of living things. Cells are the smallest living things on the earth. All things, including bacteria, are made up of cells because they are alive. Human beings being the top of the tier of all cellular life forms. Along with that, you will be responsible to remembering the three subatomic particles. So what are neutrons? What are protons? And what are electrons? Know their charges and basically what they do in terms of reactions with one another. There are about 13 essential elements in the human body, and they are all created inside of us, especially the human body. Of the 13, there are 3 major elements. So make sure you know what the elements are, and those include water, which is fluids, carbon, and hydrogen. You will be responsible for knowing the actual percentage of each of those 3 top elements of the body. Along with that, the 3 major states of matter include solids, liquids, and gases. Make sure you remember the terminology and the actual specificity of what makes a solid, what makes a fluid, and what makes a gas its property. You will also be asked simple examples of each. The difference between energy and work is very important. Work is not being done unless there is one key element to it, and that is movement. Something that is not moving is not being applied in the physical world of work. For work to occur, you must also need something else, and that is energy. Energy in terms of human beings is simply in food that we eat. The energy for the entire world in our universe is applied to by the sun. The sun gives off energy in terms of plants creating photosynthesis, in which animals eat the plants, in which other carnivores like humans eat those animals. 2 major forms of energy are kinetic and potential energy. Kinetic energy is that which is in motion, and potential is that which is not in motion, but has the ability to perform work. You will need to know the 3 major chemical reactions that we discussed in class, including synthesis, which is the creation of larger molecules from smaller ones. And remember the formula. You will also need to know decomposition, which is a chemical reaction which takes larger particles and breaks it down to smaller particles. And of course, there is an exchange reaction which occurs in which different particles in a reaction switch and take place otherwise. Be responsible for those 3 reactions, and please know the actual formula for that. Moving on, we will talk about energy. In terms of energy, energy is around us in all times. Even when human beings die, we transfer all of our energy, our body, into the ground. The ground is then reabsorbed by minerals and fertilizes the plants that raise above us, if you remember the term, pushing daisies. So energy cannot be lost. Remember that. Energy is always in motion, it's around us, it's everywhere, and it's one of the key elements that allows the cycle of life. In terms of chemical reactions, you need to remember what is a process that occurs inside of us. Chemical reactions cannot take place without something known as an enzyme. An enzyme is something that basically allows a creation or chemical reaction to take place. Enzymes have a very important property as well. They are proteins that do not determine the end product. However, enzymes do fasten or quicken the reaction of a chemical reaction. So it can speed it up, but it can never determine the end product. Remember that. For a chemical reaction to take place, you need something called an activation energy. Activation energy is very important because it is the sole elicitor or the precursor of a reaction taking place. Without activation energy, chemical reactions cannot take place. For example, when humans digest food, food is the first form which allows the digestive process to take place. All right. Also, moving on, you will need to know the following terms: metabolites and the nutrients. There are 6 classes of nutrients. Okay. The first one is carbohydrates. Second one is vitamins. Next one is lipids. You have fats. You have minerals, and you have water. Not in that specific order, but those are the 6 main forms of nutrients that the human body digests and has chemical reactions to. In terms of water, water is probably the most important element that has no nutritional value in terms of giving you calories, because water is 0 calories. However, water is required for giving you the absorption and for also the maintenance of the organs and keeping them lubricated. Remember to go over the organic compounds. What is organic? What is inorganic? Anything that is organic has a main element of carbon and also hydrogen. Remember to also understand and remember to study the pH levels. The pH levels in most of the body is either going to be acidic, basic, or it's going to be neutral. And you need to remember what they are in terms of their designated number in the pH scale. If it is above 7, what is it? If it's below 7, what is it? If it's neutral, what is it at? And I'll give you an example. For neutral being at 7, you must realize that one of the examples, the best example, is water. You will be given some examples of things that are acidic or basic in the test. Okay. In terms of moving on, all organic compounds, remember what they all contain. Okay, the 3 major elements of organic compounds. Also, carbohydrates, when we talk about carbs, carbohydrates are the first actual fuel that the body is producing in terms of consumption. In other words, the food you eat, like potatoes, spaghetti, bread, its ultimate source is carbohydrates. It is white, it is basically simple or complex, but carbohydrates provide the immediate fuel of energy for the human body. And they are written in a 1-to-1 ratio, and they contain 3 elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Remember that. On the test, you will be given an example of those. Of the carbohydrates, you have monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Mono is made up of 1. These are the simple sugars. Di has 2 sugars, and polysaccharides are the worst ones because there's multiple sugars. And we're talking chocolates, candy, soda, all the stuff that is truly sweet with too many carbohydrates. You need to know what macromolecules are and how many classifications. What is the number of macromolecules? In terms of different types of these, know the characteristics of lipids and the lipid families. We're talking about fatty acids, eicosanoids, and so forth, glycerides, triglycerides. Know the type of lipids that there are. Know the characteristics of the lipids. Some of them give off hormones. Some of them help to lubricate your body. By the way, fats are necessary for organs to be protected. Think about the fat that's in your stomach, your belly. It helps to keep the muscles from actually hurting or the bones from crushing some of the organs, especially your intestines. There are some cultures and races that eat high foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are those which are found in fish and certain nuts. Now, these are good because they're actually high in what we call HDL, okay, which is high density lipoproteins, which is good. So let's say Eskimos or Alaskans or people who live near the ocean, they have a high diet in fish. And fish actually is the best source of omega-3 fatty acids. It actually is the best type of fat that your body and your heart can use. Remember that. Some of the other fats known as prostaglandins have different chemical and hormonal charges or different characteristics. Please know what prostaglandins are and the example of a prostaglandin on the test. You must know the difference between diglycerides and triglycerides. Triglycerides are actually the most important yet the most fatty forms of fat. But triglycerides are the ones that actually help to make that fatty cushion that allows your organs from being, like I said earlier, being injured from one another. Because you do need some form of fat around your organs to keep it from getting crushed. Okay. In terms of steroids, know what type of steroids there are, or know the difference between the goodness of cholesterol and the badness of cholesterol. Cholesterol does a lot of things. It can deal with hormones, it can deal with actual fats, it can also deal with growth. Okay? Next, we talk about proteins. And proteins are important because they help to build the muscle structure of the body. Proteins are made up of 20 amino acids. The amino acids that make protein allows us to get strong muscles to help us move, to keep the body temperature in our bodies as well. And you need to know for the test the amount of proteins which are abundant enough in the body, and how much of your total body weight do proteins actually make up. That needs to be known. Also, how many functions does proteins have? There's several. Know the type of different proteins that we also discussed in terms of structural proteins, contractile proteins. What do they specifically do? Which protein helps you to move or actually provide support? Another protein is very important. Example of antibodies. Antibodies are proteins that defend our body against disease and bacteria. These are actually found in the immune system. So remember, the thymus releases T cells. The T cells of the thymus then tell the B cells to create these antibodies. All right, one of the last and fourth group of macromolecules is basically something that contains genetic coding, genetic materials. And those would be nucleic acids. What are nucleic acids? What do they contain that is so important for us? Well, nucleic acids have the genetic material that determines our eye color, our hair color, all those things that we produce to make us unique. And on the test, you'll be asked exactly what the nucleic acids are. What are DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid? Why is DNA important? Along with that, also be able to discuss what nucleotides do, or what nucleotides, some examples of a nucleotides are. And going back to carbohydrates and so forth, just know why certain foods are starches or not, such as the carbohydrates like pasta, rice, those things are all starch. Last but not least, of the nitrogenous bases, how many of them are there? And why are nitrogenous bases important? Not only do they determine the arrangement of adenosine, thymine, tyrosine, uracil, all of those help to determine, again, the sequence of genetic placement in the human body. All right, so there you have it. On your test, you will be asked no more than 50 questions. So make sure you go over the basics of chemistry in the term of physiology. Go over your notes. Okay, there's only 12 slides you have for this test. There will be no questions from the textbook. There will also be no essay. So all you have is this exam of 50 questions, multiple choice. Study hard and good luck.